Part 7, Awakening. This is the last part, and it's all about awakenings and enlightenments. The picture on the left is an overview of the caste system of India, or the system of hierarchy. And the picture on the right is a picture I found. The translation is below, if you want to read. As we saw just now, the Brahmins are the highest caste, and they are the priestly caste, even above kings and warriors. They are said to be born twice, first from their mother's womb, and second through the temple during the rite of passage for boys of the upper caste. And during this rite, the sacred thread is placed, which becomes part of them. And I think you can see the sacred thread around his neck. And the other ends of the caste system are the Dalits, the laborers and lowest castes, and they are trained to bend in fear at the sight of the Brahmins. If not, they would lose their life. Chapter 30, Shedding the Sacred. And this story is of a Brahmin that wanted more from the world. He wanted to get out of the caste norm, and so he decided to break it. And he talked to people who were supposed to be below him. And we're supposed to, bend in fear of seeing him. And he realized that, and I quote, "They knew things about the world that his privilege had not required him to know," end quote. And so now he was born a third time. The shades lifted in a darker room in his mind. And so this is the first awakening that we see, and it's sort of like a social, cultural world awakening of there is more to see in the world than just your bubble of life and social, cultural, economic status in life. The radicalization of the dominant caste, and this is a short story of two friends who go to a restaurant, and one of them is white, the other is black. Their white server continuously ignores them while serving other tables around them. And this is the moment that a anti-racist, anti-casteist, upper caste individual experiences the discrimination that so many people face on the daily basis. And so I really like this quote that she says. I know it's long, but it's really good. Part of me resented that she could go ballistic and get away with it when I might not even be believed. It was caste privilege to go off in the restaurant the way she did. But part of me wished that every person in the dominant caste that denies and deflects, minimizes, and gaslights African Americans and other marginalized people could experience what she did. She had been radicalized in a matter of minutes. And so this is our second awakening of someone who is white, who had not experienced discrimination before, or at least not in this way, not because of the color of her skin, and they were ignored in a restaurant by someone who was supposed to be serving them because there was someone black at the table. Chapter 31, The Heart is the Last Frontier, is the last chapter and the final awakening. And it's a story of a plumber that comes in to fix a flooded basement. And this plumber is a white man wearing a MAGA hat who goes to the house of a black woman living in a predominantly white neighborhood with joggers and cyclists and purposeful moms in yoga sweats pushing baby strollers, ponytails bouncing, maybe a labradoodle trotting behind. And at first, she describes that he is dismissive and snappy and doesn't really want to do the work and doesn't want to figure out what truly is happening in the basement and why it's flooding. He just doesn't want to be there. He seems very uncomfortable and is out of his comfort zone. And so he realizes that later they make a human connection. They bond over death. Both of them had lost their mother. And so they start talking about that. She had recently lost her mother and he had lost her a couple years ago. So they talk about how much they miss their mothers. And then he lets his guard down a little bit and does his job and figures out where the water is coming from and fixes it and leaves. And then he actually comes back and says, I forgot to do this, and really tries to make sure that this doesn't happen again to her. Um, and she describes this interaction as especially trying because it was a month after Trump was elected president. And so many people, it was heated. And he was displaying a symbol of racism. He was displaying that famous hat, Make America Great Again. And it was very triggering.